Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Adoptees podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Rabail Ahmed. Looking forward to our conversation today, Rabail. Rabail and I met at a conference in London a few weeks ago, and she's doing some advocacy work and helping. Uh, a lot of work in transracial. I've been in the transracial adoption space, helping people understand what that means. And Rabil's a little younger than the average guest that we have on. So I'm hoping to freshen it up a little bit rather than old farts like me all the time. Rabil's a different generation with a different take on what's going on. So Rabil, what comes to your mind when you hear this, the name of this podcast, this Thriving Adoptees thing?
Well, I think it's a lot to do with the fact that adoption has sort of sometimes can have a bit of a negative connotation attached to it, whereas actually a lot of adoptions um, they do help you thrive because you've got a family, um, you've got people looking after you, so it that's what springs to mind that actually we are thriving as adoptees a lot of the time, um, rather than it's not always bad, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Is it more like a mixed bag? What do you think?
What between thriving and
A mixed bag. So some people talk about
Mhm.
the complexities of adoption. So I'm interviewing a lady later in the week. The name's just escaped me, but uh, but her book is called The Adoption Paradox.
Mhm.
So she's exploring the complexities, the good stuff and the not so good stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Um, it's that paradox.
Mhm.
It is a bit of both, or is it? I mean, what? How do you see it?
I mean, like it depends on what your story is, what your background is. I mean, I'd say it is a mixed bag, yes, because not everybody does have a good adoption journey. But it can be like from my adoption, like I've had a brilliant journey with it. Um, so yeah, I think it just depends on your background and what's sort of gone on within your adoption.
Yeah. For me, the two things. There's obviously there's the relinquishment stuff. There's the loss of our birth mother,
Hmm.
and then it's how and it's but there's also the factor of how we are raised as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
Like,
those, sorry.
sorry. No, I was just gonna say like I have had a real like I've had a great time with my adoption, but like you're saying, it is hard when with birth family side of things, and obviously a lot of people that are adopted have that issue within their journey. So yeah, like even it's not just a mixed bag in general, it's a mixed bag even just with one story, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's good and bad.
Yeah.
But I'd say it's more good than bad.
Right. Yeah. Because I I think how we're raised
Hmm.
has a big influence on how we feel about the loss of the
Yeah.
birth mother, right?
Yes.
So the more emotionally intelligent, I guess the more open our adopted parents are, the less that other stuff impacts us. Or
Yeah, no, I agree to that. Yeah, because if you've been adopted and you've not had the greatest bringing up, you're gonna maybe think about, I don't know, I guess you'd think about what how your life would have been if you wasn't adopted
yeah,
and whether it would have been better or worse. So yeah, definitely.
yeah. What sort of questions have you had growing up? Has that been on your mind a lot, a little? What's it been like for you?
I've had a lot. I don't know if it's just me, but I've had a lot in my mind growing up with wondering who the birth mum is, where, like why why it all happened. Um, so yeah, I've definitely had a lot of questions. I feel like that's kind of normal though. Um, yeah.
One of the things, this is a massive gender simplification, right? But what I found interviewing adoptees is that it's the women seem to question more
Yeah.
than guys. I don't, but that's just kind of that's my take on it. I know you've been around in other groups, like you've met other adoptees that we met at the conference. Yeah, have you had that? Have you had that thought as well, or is that what? How do you see it? Do
Um,
you see gender as an issue around
um,
questions?
I'm not sure 100% because the only other adopted person that I know very well is also a female. So,
All right, okay.
um, I do know two males that are adopted, but I don't know them very well.
That
So I
well to
wouldn't
know
know if they've
what the
asked.
score is. Yeah,
I would love to have a conversation with them about it to see to determine.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have a little pet theory about it that it's
Mhm.
something to do with maternal instincts.
Right. Yeah.
That they're that obviously it's a very different thing, paternal versus maternal instincts, and that's kind of why I think, but I have no proof of
Mhm.
that whatsoever. It is literally uh, just a theory. So, I mean, you mentioned the word story and life. Have you done much exploration in terms of, do you know much of the story behind the adoption or?
So I have tried, yeah. So like I've took DNA tests, I've took a few. Um, I've also working with long lost family
Right.
program. They're sort of searching for any answers at the minute.
Yeah.
Has been going on for about 2 years now, but it can take a really long time. So yeah, I've done two DNA tests, so I found out where I was from. Then and it and apart from that,
No.
I've not really known what else to do.
No. No.
It's so vague.
They can't. There's no tracking back of in files or anything. No.
So I did actually when I turned 18, I did actually access my adoption file. But I already knew everything that was on the adoption file. There was no names, no nothing, but I already knew that there would
Yeah.
be. So,
Yeah.
and without a name, it can be very difficult.
Indeed. Yeah. Because I had it when I got my first bit of paper. It had a name on it. It had my birth mother's name on it, and it had my the name she gave me as well. And I haven't really been expecting that. I
Yeah.
just expected. Nobody said, "Oh, when you get this, you realise you might have had a before you were Simon Ben, you might have been somebody else, right? You might have had a different name." Did your file have a different name?
It did, yes, but I already knew
You knew that.
before that I had a different
Yeah.
name.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. So I had that and nothing else, and then I sent off. I sat on that information for I don't know a long time, maybe two
You.
years or something like that before I restarted it. So did the DNA identify any matches with cousins or anything like that?
Yeah, so when I did it, it came back with very distant cousins. This was the issue. So it was coming up with like cousins, like second cousin once removed or something like that. It was like really, really distant cousins that I tried to get in contact with but got no reply. So it depends as well if you're on the app as well, because with 23andMe, you get an app and you can sort of dive deep into
Yeah.
all.
And they want to sell you a subscription to help you do that, right? I think. Is that one of them? I paid for the DNA test, and then you pay the one-off fee, and then they try and sell you a monthly fee so that you know you've got to keep on using the tool, you've got to pay.
Yeah.
And that's that kind of their revenue model. But yeah, I had a couple of connections with first and second cousins, and
Hmm.
then eventually that led to a couple of conversations with those two people
Oh, really?
and helped me fill in the story. So my cousin remembers my biological father,
Oh, wow.
and she told me that the city he lives in,
Right.
and with his name and the city, that helped me find him.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then I think I've probably told this listeners before on this. I mean, not told you, but then I rang him totally out of the blue.
Mhm.
Um, and given it was like 57 years after he'd signed a little piece of paper saying he wasn't interested in the unborn baby, right? That he was giving up his right. He still wasn't interested 57 years later on. So so
Yeah.
that was but it is it is the combination of the two things, and putting the findings from different routes together led me to that conversation. So if I hadn't done the DNA, I wouldn't have known that, and if I hadn't done the file, then I wouldn't have his name. You see, so it was putting the stuff together. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what why do you think this? You mentioned this negative connotation. Why do you think that happens? What do you think that's about?
I think it comes from, I don't know how to explain. I think it comes from like,
Society view, is it? Is that what you're saying?
yeah,
Or
yeah, like the the adopted person, the adopted child isn't biologically yours. I feel like there's such a huge like worry around that, but it's not really about the blood, it's more about being part of a family.
yeah. So you're talking about the stigma for parents there, yeah?
Parents and children, yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause you sometimes think, like, I'm not even biologically related to my mom, like that's crazy, or vice versa, like this isn't as horrible as it sounds, this isn't like my actual child in a way. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Just obviously it is your child, but biologically, yeah.
Yeah. So the idea that biology is better.
I, I, I guess because you I don't know, genetics and all of that, like it's just in a
I-
way, but I don't see it as that. I see it
No,
as like
no.
it's it's uh it's who raised you. Like my mum has raised me since I was 8 months old. So like that's my mum. Like there's no question about it, whether we're related or not.
Yeah. Me too. That's how I feel.
Mm.
It is real. I guess what people may be getting at is it's not the norm, right?
Yeah.
People don't, people, the systems are set up for the norm. You know,
Mhm.
when I hear about the stuff that adopted parents have to go through to get support, right? If they need some extra support, or to raise issues with schools, it's they find it tough. And they find it tough because those bureaucracies are set up to deal with the norm. They don't like they're not set up for outliers. It's not, and we're not the majority.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, and so does it then so it, but then for them to realize that it's not personal,
Mhm.
it's more about the system. Uh,
Yeah.
takes a bit of a load off somehow.
Mhm.
But we're beyond biology. We're talking about reality and your connection with your parents.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's without question, you said.
Yes,
Yeah.
because like it's not it's there's a different I always think I've always said this. I think there's a difference between a mother and a mum. Like a mother is someone, like nurtures you, like raises you, like has brought you up. Like that's a mother. But birth mum, like yes, she gave birth to me, but I don't know who she is. She didn't know who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, there's no question about it at all. I feel like a mother is who actually raised you.
Yeah. So what would you say to adoptive mums listening in
Hmm.
terms of this stuff and what's worked? There are people often asking if I'm doing a training, right? Adoptive parents will ask me for advice,
Yeah.
right? Um, what advice would you give to adoptive mums listening in terms of what you think works and what creates that unquestionable bond that you're talking about?
I think allowing your child to express how they're feeling about their adoption at any point, whenever they want, because sometimes you just need to talk about it because it's such a big deal. Like, especially if you don't know much, it's kind of, it's always weighing on your shoulders in a way. It's always in the back of your mind. So just allowing your child to speak about it freely, not getting offended. Like I know it must be hard. Like I'm not an
Yeah,
adopter, but it must be hard. Like if your child's coming to you wondering about their birth mum, dad, their family, why did it happen to me, things like that. Like you could take offense to that, in a way of feeling like, oh, like they don't want me in a way. Like, but to know that just know that it's not to it's not like meant to come across as offensive. It's more of a way that you're thinking about it all the time, so you just want to talk about it and get it off your chest in a way. I
yeah,
feel that's how I felt anyway. I know some people will just not want to talk about it at all, and that's also fine. And just deal with it in your own head and in your own space. But for me, like, definitely. So like like you need to work out like almost like what your child is like. Are they a person who doesn't like to talk about it, or are they a person who really actually loves to talk about it and it makes them feel better? Just sort
yeah,
of work that out as well. Because and ask them even like, is this something you want to talk about to me?
yeah,
Then feel free to talk to me anytime. And if you don't, then that's also okay.
yeah. So what I'm getting is that from you is that you didn't and you don't question your mother, right? You don't question her. The questions that you have about your birth mum have got nothing to do with the relationship that you have with your birth mother. Sorry,
Yeah.
with your adopted mother, with your mum.
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, no, it's nothing to do with her. It's more about what I'm thinking in my head. Um, yeah, yeah, exactly like you say.
Yeah. Because there is something quite profound about that, right?
Mm.
Because the fact that the two sorts of, you can have that bond with
Yeah.
your mum, but still have questions about your birth mother. It
Yeah, it
doesn't
is
quite.
weird.
It is
Yeah,
weird. You wouldn't
yeah.
think that those two things could exist in time. I haven't thought about it like that actually before. Funny enough.
Yeah, no, I do. I have, and I think it is strange because other people might see it as like, well, if you're so content with your adoptive mum, why are you worrying? Why are you bothering so much about your birth mum? That's how someone could see it if they don't understand.
Yeah,
So yeah, I can understand. Yeah, I get how it can come across as
yeah,
quite weird actually because yeah. And that's why I guess adoptive mums maybe do feel offense to it if they're thinking of it like that, like how
Yeah,
we've.
yeah. I guess it goes back to that complexity thing, isn't it? I think we like simplicity rather than complexity, and the fact that those two things can sit alongside each other, not questioning your mother, but questions about your birth. It's not questioning your mum, but questions about birth mother.
Mm.
that those two things can exist side by side,
Yeah.
and we're kind of craving complexity. So people will say to me things like, "So, are you pro adoption, or are you against adoption, Simon?" And I'll say, "Well, I'm for whatever's in the best interest of the kid,
Yeah.
and that requires a deeper dive rather than a simple, oh, I'm pro-adoption or I'm anti-adoption. It's not quite. People are looking for simplicity somehow, and
Yeah.
any part of complexity, then they're not after that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
It's definitely about the best interest for the child and the adoptive parents. Like,
yeah,
I think sometimes we do forget about the adoptive dad as well. We
yeah,
talk about birth mums and birth and adoptive mums, but we don't sometimes forget what it feels like for an adoptive dad.
yeah, yeah. What do you think is important around that?
I don't know, I feel like having a male figure in your life is really important. Um, so yeah, and that, I don't know, like it's so easily forgotten, I feel.
Yeah,
Like, I wonder what, I mean, I've never really asked Dad,
yeah,
like how he feels.
yeah.
That sounds horrible now.
Well,
But I've never asked like about. But then I've never asked my mum either. Like, well, they've I don't know. Like you don't really about how they feel about
yeah.
So, but do you know what I mean? It's just
Well, when it's been since you were 8 months old, right? It's a given, isn't it? It,
yeah,
it's it's a given. It's the norm. So why do we talk about the stuff that is the norm?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
part of it.
That's it. It's just like we've never. I don't like obviously we spoke about adoption, but not about like how they found the process is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
That's about how I'm not asking how they feel about that, but obviously like we've spoken about adoption with each other.
yeah,
But then again, like you say that it's what I've known and what they've known, so you just don't seem to really speak about those.
yeah. One of the things that came off for me off the back of the conversation with my biological father would be, I'm glad that guy didn't raise me
Hmm.
because what I figured out, because they've been dating for like five months, according to the file anyway. They've been going out for 5 months, and when she told him that she was pregnant, he was like, "How can I be know it? How can I be sure it's mine?" And sort of strange stuff like that. Um, and so he obviously didn't love her because if he loved her, he would have married her, right? So what if he'd married her despite the fact that he didn't love her, and then I'd grown up in that household with him seeing me as somebody that caused him that changed the somebody that caused him to do something that he didn't want to do,
Yeah.
right? So he could have resented me forever. Also, the way he was on the phone with me. So let me just go back a bit. So one of the questions that I'd had in my head was, could I have done what he did to her in 1966, right? And I could never really get a kind of instinctual. I didn't have an instinctual answer to that question, and nor did I get a question. Did I get an answer to that question after considering it, right? but I had a very strong instinct to would I have been like he was to me when I rang him up out of the blue? And I wouldn't have been I wouldn't have been like he was to me. Uh, no way. So is this guy somebody that I respect?
Hmm.
And the answer is, or would want to be like, perhaps. Who would I want to? And it would be a no, definite no on that.
Yeah.
So, what have you've obviously been getting out and about. You were on that, you talked at that conference where we met down in London like a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was. What have you been learning from that, from that process, from getting out and about? From the conference and the work that you've done.
Oh, well, from the conference, I think I didn't realize actually how much research is going on behind the scenes about all different types of stuff adoption. Um, so yeah, it kind of reassured me in a way. That's what I've in a nutshell learnt from that. And but doing work with people, so like I've worked with prospective adopters in their training and um like spoke to them just 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 because even if they're not in training.
Yeah,
And I think from that I've learned that just that everyone's situation is so different. Um, but like like you everyone sort of knows that, but more in depth now, I think I've realized how different everyone's life is and how different, you know. So yeah.
yeah. I think for me, it's like that bit where you realize it, but then you realize the same thing at a deeper level.
Yes.
So it's not just a yes. I used to think understanding was a yes or no thing,
Mhm.
where it's got far more depth to it. So you can see the same things at a deeper and deeper level. And kind of, you get it. So I talk about getting stuff. We can get our stuff in, we can get stuff in the head, we can get stuff in the heart, or we can get stuff in our bones, right?
Mm.
So it's kind of baked in. It's
Yeah.
baked in, and that's the deepening of our understanding. So, what sort of things you've been doing with prospective adopted parents in terms of the training?
So they've just sort of been in their training. I've not trained them, but
No.
like I've come and spoke to them for a couple of hours, you know, just here and there. And with another one of my friends who's a
Yeah.
doctor, with her as well. We've just sort of allowed them to ask as many questions as they want. Um and and it's not just prospective adopters that have been there sometimes. Sometimes it's just been a group of people that are adoptive parents,
Yeah.
prospective adoptive parents. So just speaking to them because I feel like I think I said at the conference, we forget that like it's not just one single process. It goes on for life. Like I don't think there's enough training for what do you do when your kid's a teenager because they change so much. Like you do change, like your behavior, the way you think, everything. It's so there needs to be some sort of training like how to cope with when that kid does become of an age where you start to understand like how crazy your adoption actually is.
Yeah.
Um, because I know for me, like I think I was like when I actually started to understand like my life, I think I was like 12. So like that's when you like that's when I sort of changed in a way because you just start to think about the unknown and everything. Well, it depends on your story, doesn't it? But like for me, like the unknown. Um, but yeah, so yeah, I'd definitely love to help them more. with how to deal with someone that's a teenager, an adopted teenager, because it's different from dealing with a child, like
Yeah.
a 5-year-old.
A lot of people will say this that the teenage years are tricky for everybody, and especially tricky for adoptees and obviously their parents. Um, and during that phase, we can adoptive parents like we can do right as adoptees. We can drive ourselves a little bit mad thinking this is me actually. I said we right, but um, is this a human thing? Is this part of human suffering or is this part of human joy, right? But is this a human thing or is this an adoption thing?
Yeah.
And we'll never know, right? It's almost as if I had one of my mentors on the podcast ages ago, coachy type lady, and I was having a conversation with her once, and I talking about this, and she said, "Well, you'll never know, Simon."
Mm.
Like because all this is all wrapped up and presented in just one person, so we can't. You're going to kind of you're going to be have to be okay with not knowing
Yeah.
whether this is an adoption issue, whether this is a human issue,
Yeah.
and because trying to figure it out is a complete waste of time. It's like a rabbit hole. We disappear down that. Disappear down that rabbit hole.
Just get so distracted from it, like you won't be able to carry on with your life if you actually sat and thought about, like, tried to work it out for ages and ages, because
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's just not worth it
It's
sometimes.
not. It's not just worth it. Yeah, we have to kind of deal with what's in right in front of us.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And it's not just even teenage. I feel like there's a few stages. There's that younger stage where you don't kind of know what's going on. Like, yes, like for me anyway. Like I keep saying we, but I don't
yeah.
know
No, we don't.
me. So it's like with growing up, like I'm sure people can relate there, is up to say like 10. Like my parents have always mentioned the word adoption, adoption, adoption to me, which is definitely that's a good way of dealing with it. That a good way of
Yeah,
um yeah, it's good. So, and without that, I think I wouldn't have thrived as we're saying. So, it's like so that you know what's going on, you know what adoption is, but then you hit an age where your parents think you're old enough to maybe understand. They tell you, and that's normally around that I'd say, proper sit down chat when you can understand is probably around preteen, teenager. Then you've got that whole phase of trying to work yourself out who you are and all the rest of it for years and years. And then you get 18 and then you're an adult and you're thinking, right, adoption file, DNA test, blah blah. So there's like almost like and then the fourth stage I'd say if I make this theory up. The fourth stage, like which I've not reached yet, but that's maybe like into your proper adulthood, like after 25, So like there's quite a few stages, and that's why we need more, not just focusing on the adoption itself. We need to focus more on how to how how to deal with all the emotions that come along with it afterwards for
yeah,
years and years and years until yeah.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. Having children is quite a big landmark in that. As I understand, like me and my wife haven't got any kids, so I wouldn't know, but that's what they tell me. And going back to something that you said about using the word, a friend of mine who's been on the podcast a couple of times, Jude Home, an adoptee from the States, her mum told her use the adoption word the first moment that she held the baby in her arms
Yeah.
when Jude was held in her arms. So and she felt that if she didn't tell her then she would never have told her. She
Mhm.
wouldn't have had the courage to tell her. So she had to kind of like get it out there first before they can understand the word.
Yeah. I think that's a really, really good way of helping yourself, and it would help the child
Yeah,
because they've already heard the word. It's not a massive shock. And I can imagine it can be very difficult to tell your child that.
yeah,
That must be crazy. Like I don't know, but yeah, and like you say, like with that's like another stage of life, isn't it? Like you could say that's the fifth stage, having children of your own or adopting a child of your
yeah,
own. That must be really hard to wrap your head around.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, what about we started off with this idea of thriving and the negative connotation. We talked about negative connotation that some people have, the fact that we're not like the masses who are biologically related to their kids. What what does thriving mean to you now, kind of personally, in terms of your life stage, your relationships, your family, education, whatever. What does it mean? What does it mean for you now, like personally?
In relation to,
And what's I guess you're at university, right?
I am.
So in terms of your taking an overview of where you are at the moment, what does
Considering all before.
considering, yeah, like a helicopter view. So that helicopter view could include your family, could you include your friends, your education, your career aspirations, where you are now.
I definitely think at this stage and at this point, it's the most sort of I've I'm thriving the most out of what considering beforehand. Um, because I'm at a stage now where I'm kind of comfortable with the fact that I'm adopted. So I think as soon as you go through that, you do thrive more because you've it sat with you right now. Like before, I think when it was really fresh, like it's took like I'm 20 now, and I was like 12, 13 when I actually started to understand it. So it has took a while, and I'm definitely not all the way over it yet, but like 7 years. So like for it to actually be finally comfortable with it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be speaking about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But yeah, I definitely think at this stage in time, I'm thriving. And I'm at a place now where I've done my DNA. I've got over it, like understood it because I was 15 when I did my first DNA test. So it's proper sunk in. And I'm at a uni where, and most, like every uni, I'm sure, they they're quite helpful. Like, and not that I've accessed it yet, but if I ever needed to, there is a help for care leavers and adopted people and things like that. And it's becoming more and more apparent that these things are around. So yeah, I definitely say now I'm thriving the
yeah,
most
yeah.
because I'm comfortable with it.
Comfortable, yeah. So were there any particular moments on that journey to feeling comfortable? Like, I mean, some people talk about being comfortable in their own skin.
Mhm.
You talked about being comfortable with being adopted. What any particular moments come to mind where,
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I think when I wasn't comfortable was when it was really fresh and and you're growing up, you don't know what's going on, you're trying to understand it, um, and you speak to a friend about it, say,
yeah,
um, and sometimes with school and friends and
yeah,
stuff, it can get around that you're adopted. And I think I had a period of time in my life where it was all a big jerk that I was adopted at school. So it that was when I was very uncomfortable because there's people that will make you feel uncomfortable about it. I can't remember what
yeah,
time in my life that actually it was. I must have been like, I don't know, like really early secondary school or very end of primary school when it sort of went around, and then yeah, it makes you feel a bit uncomfortable that everybody knows because it's quite private to you. And at that time, I did find it really private, and didn't want to speak about it because I was, I guess, ashamed about it and embarrassed, which absolutely should not be, as I know now. But before, I was very ashamed about it.
Yeah. So that relates back to the kind of the negative connotation that so that's how it kind of that's how it was when you talk to somebody in confidence and the stuff got out that should have been kept private.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I meant at the beginning when I said about negative connotations.
Yeah.
That's what thought came to my head.
Yeah.
Um, People making fun about it. It's because like barely anybody was adopted in that school. So
Yeah.
like it's just kind of like you again, you're not the norm. You're
You're not
not
the norm. It's
normal, whatever normal
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Like you just because you're just a bit different, and for some reason that's a reason to pick on someone.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the word is that some people use is othered. They make us feel othered. And one of the well, I did a lot of work in schools, actually, in primary schools or elementary schools for people that over the other side of the pond. I did a lot of work before I came to the adoption space. I did a lot of work on kids' happiness and confidence, anti-bullying and happiness. And what I found that was the biggest cause of kids upset
Mm.
was being othered, being bullied for being different,
Mhm.
whether that's having red hair. Like me, I was bullied for having teeth that stuck out, like all that.
Mm.
But it's just landing for me here, right, in terms of the depth, the depth of the pain,
Mhm.
the depth of the issue, right? So being bullied for wearing glasses is completely different from being bullied for being adopted.
Yeah.
It's a lot deeper.
Yeah.
It's kind of more profound.
Yeah.
But
Especially
it's
when you're trying to get your head around it at that time as well. To
yeah,
then it's like, well, I don't even understand it. So why am I getting
yeah,
picked on for this? Um, yeah.
it's tough, eh?
Hmm. And I think another time where it was a bit um not thriving, shall we say,
Yeah,
it's probably when there's just been there's been certain moments while I've been growing up where all of a sudden I get this urge. I'm like, right, I'm gonna find my birth mother. And then you search, you search, you search, you search, you search, and you find nothing. Those are the times where it's like, and it just sometimes happens. I don't really know why. I've never really spoke to anyone whoever. Ugh. I've never really spoke to anyone who also experiences, but like you just all of a sudden get this like urge, and it's like, right, I'm ready to find find out what's going on. And you do try and search and then you get nowhere. So yeah, those times I felt quite like not comfortable about
no,
it. Like,
no,
am I not getting anywhere? Especially it's like where do you even start? Because like if you don't have a name or things like that, it's just hard because it's like you don't even know what you do. And that to be fair, that sometimes I have found things on the internet. Like I've looked in newspaper archives and things like that and found articles about me or like I think I even saw a picture once of myself in a newspaper archive. So yeah, like some internet searches do find you things. And then you're like, right, this is great, and then you thrive in, and then some days or like weeks that you have where you're like, right, I'm ready to find out, and you don't find anything, you can really not thrive.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So you're talking about frustration, is it? In a word, is that what it's about?
100%. Yeah, it is so frustrating
Yeah.
sometimes.
And yeah, there's been some turning points for you, there haven't there? Because you've kind of uh, so this is a bit of a tongue twister, right? So not a tongue twister, but it's a mind bender thing, right? This coach of mine, Liz, she says, if we're always okay, yeah, no, see, I can't say it, right? If we're okay with not being okay, we're always okay,
Mhm.
right? If we're okay with not being okay, we're always okay. So in this sense, it would be if we're okay with not knowing, we're okay.
Yeah.
So there's a kind of a resignation, like resignation, acceptance. Yeah, resignation sounds a little bit tricky. Accept there's an exception. Sorry, there's accepting that accepting our frustration or accepting the lack of answers, accepting the the constant questions, accepting the fact that we might never know,
Mhm.
and then it's kind of it's all right. Then
Yeah.
is that what is that what it's like for you? Because yeah,
Yeah, totally. Um, like for me, I've not accepted that I'm not happy with. I've not tried everything yet. Do you know what I mean? I still think I don't know what I've not tried, but there's stuff that I've not tried yet. And so it's like there must be something else I can try to find out something. And I've not accepted that this is it. Like I'm totally ready to find out more
yeah,
and more. And like I'm waiting on long lost family at the minute. So it's yeah.
but you're okay with that.
Yeah, well, it depends on the day to
Yeah,
be
it
honest.
depends on the day. Yeah, it does. It does.
It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like
But
today.
largely, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, largely like I'm accepting of the fact that I am just waiting. Like it's been years and years, but I'm still waiting and we've been through this with Long Lost Family. Like this, it could be 10, 20, 30 years. Like you just don't know how long it's gonna take when something comes forward. You know, a new person that is related to me puts a DNA and
yeah,
sample in the system. Boom, that's all of a sudden you found something. But that could be years. It's literally a waiting game. It's luck, really, at the end of the day.
and how
I'm
are
not
you? Yeah, how are you with? How do you feel about the waiting game?
like it is so frustrating, largely. It is so frustrating. And you just want it to hurry up and you just don't have the patience. But then it's like it will all be worth it in the end. So yeah. But then like I've accepted that it is going to take a while, but I've not accepted that I'm done here. Like there is definitely more work that can be done. Like if this doesn't work, I'll try something else. Like, but we'll come to that when this doesn't work. I'm gonna stay positive and hope that it does.
Yeah,
So when it comes to it, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. If it doesn't work, then when I don't find anything through Lauren's family, then I'll try something else.
yeah,
Yeah. And I feel like that's the same with a lot of people. If you don't know your background, you're gonna want to try everything. If you're looking that way, if you want to find them, if you don't want to find them, then and you're accepting it, and then you're okay with being okay.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think the stop start nature and progress, no progress, stop start nature of the progress. Sorry, stop start nature of the process. It is what most of us go through, right?
Definitely.
Um, and frustration and lack of frustration and frustration and acceptance of where we are in that process.
Mhm.
That varies on a daily rate.
Yeah.
on a daily basis too. Yeah,
I think about it every single day. Every single day. I think about adoption, uh, the unknown. But some days are just easier than others.
easier
Just
than others. You talked about being reassured about the research that's going on. That was one of the things that you learned from the conference. Yeah. Have you done much reading around adoption stuff? Have you not read many books about adoption stuff?
no, not really, no. Um, but I think I don't know. I think I find it more valuable for me anyway, speaking to people,
Yeah,
life stories. Um, I feel like that's almost research in itself because it's like real life, you know?
yeah. Rather than sort of textbooky stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not much of a reader to be
No.
honest. Uh, yeah.
Yeah. What about listen to podcasts? You're not a listener on.
No. Yeah. I've listened like because I've done another podcast with You Can
Yeah,
Adopt.
yeah,
I've listened to a few of those.
yeah.
Um, mm.
And what have you learned through that process? Or what surprised you about that process?
I mean, me
Yeah,
doing podcast
you
or
doing so you talked about the fact that you have felt uncomfortable and now you feel largely comfortable about it. You're comfortable enough about it to be talking in
yeah.
public about it, which is a big thing. Like if what would your 12-year-old self said? Yeah, yeah,
Oh
you're
God.
laughing. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I think that doing that process for me, like I know that there's a podcast out in the open, like anyone can listen to it. But like I've just not really thought that's a bad thing. Because like what it's like I don't know, it's
I'm
always
not saying it's a bad thing.
no, I know, but I just feel like some it in general, like in life, like it's always come across from people as if it's like something you need to keep quiet. Like behind like everything, there's always that like, oh, but you don't have to say anything that you don't want to, or you don't feel like you need to tell your story. It's like it's almost as if someone's saying like don't speak about it. It's really personal to you. But if we don't talk about it, then how is it going to help
No.
people? If we don't talk about it, then how are people going to feel comfortable about it? Because they're going to say, oh right, well nobody talks about it, so like we can't talk about it.
Yeah,
So
good
it's
point.
it's like yeah, like it's but then that's what's kind of been given like growing up by I don't know from where, but there's this like vibe that's come about that it should be kept secret, but
Yeah,
I don't know why. And like now that I've like spoke about it and stuff in the conferences, in the youth forum with Adoption England and in podcasts in front of people like we did a youth voice event in October in Leeds. And that was in front of um like a few hundred people. So yeah, it's like it doesn't make me feel uncomfortable anymore. It's like it's the norm to me. So
yeah,
uh, yeah.
yeah. That feels like a good place to bring it in. Unless is there anything that you would like to share that I've not asked you about, Rabil?
Um, no, I think I think we've covered
Yeah, a lot of ground.
yeah we have and yeah um
Cool. Thank you, listeners, and thank you, Rabil. We'll speak to you very soon. Take care. Bye bye.